My son passed last year. I understand more than I can explain, but it doesn't stop the triggers or the memories that take
Get into the microphone. Yeah.
I need to put a stop to the memories or the triggers that take my knees out from underneath me when I remember him, and I'm trying to remember his situation as being joy and not my loss.
It's just wonderful how this dovetails with everything that we are talking about here, because that's a perfect example, first of all, of conditions that you couldn't control, and yet conditions that in your observation of them cause a chaotic emotional response in you. And so it's beneficial when things that you can't control happen and you still want to feel good, because then and only then do most people find a way of understanding what they always wanted to understand anyway. As long as there's one more thing you think you can do to fix a condition, you'll usually do that before you will find alignment with who you are. It's all right to be in your physical bodies and to be so enamored with the conditions that surround you. Humans just want to do stuff. They just want to fix stuff. They just want to control stuff. But this business of needing to control the conditions, if I look at that condition and I feel good, and then I look at that condition and I feel bad, and both conditions are in my experience, then as a human, I want to control that condition. I want to change that condition so that I can have a good feeling response to it. But you can't change the condition so that you can have a good feeling response to it. And so then religious leaders and spiritual leaders talk to you about unconditional love, and you misunderstand it because you think that what it means is just tolerate the condition, just try to find a way to live with the condition. That's sort of what you're saying. I just need to find a way to cope with this, to live with this. And what we want you to understand is that it's not about coping with it. It's not about living with it in the way that you are perceiving it. It is about understanding that negative emotion every time, and the stronger the better really to understand this, but negative emotion every time means simply this: you're looking at it in a way that the source within you is not. Your opinion here and now in that pain is really off the track of the way source is looking at it. So think about the way most people look at the death experience. You said he passed. Well, he passed where? He didn't go anywhere. And yet that's the way it looks when you're in your physical body, because the physical body's not there. It's not walking around. It's not talking to you in the way that you are accustomed to. So you come to the conclusion he's gone. And when you come to the conclusion that he's gone when he's not gone, that's discordant, you see. When you come to the conclusion that something went wrong when from broader perspective nothing went wrong, that's discordant.
No, it was perfect. His passing was...
So we like to talk about what humans call death in this way. First, we'd like you to understand that you were source energy before you came into this physical body, and that larger part of you remains source energy. And that once you are here in this physical body, when you reemerge back into non-physical, you reemerge back into non-physical. In other words, that larger part of you never goes away. In other words, that larger part of you just continues to evolve. So when someone that you love, someone that you know, makes their transition into non-physical, they're actually more aware of what you are about here and now than they ever were when they were here in your physical body. The relationship that you had with your son, or that you have with one another, is about this physical stuff, and most of it, we love you so much, is about the conditions that you are sharing with one another. But the true relationships that you are having with one another are those vibrational relationships. It's that soul-to-soul relationship. That's who you really are. So when someone makes their transition into non-physical and you are aware of them, do you know that every thought that you think, those non-physical friends like your son are there having a thought about what you're thinking about while you're having the thought that you're thinking? Did you know that? They're having the thought about what you're thinking about while you're having the thought about what you're thinking about. And when you're having the thought about what you're thinking about at the same time that they're having a thought about what you're thinking about, and the thought that you're thinking about it is on the same vibrational wavelength as the thought that they're thinking about it, you feel clarity. You feel sure, you feel love, you feel well-being, you feel supported isn't the word that we really want Esther to find, because you don't need support, and yet it is all of that support, it is all of that well-being, it's all right there with you. You're not separating yourself from any of it. You are flowing on the wings of that infinite intelligence that is flowing to you and through you from your association and your realization of that non-physical person who you used to know in physical form. But when you feel sad, when you feel anguish, when it's a memory that just makes you long for them, you're thinking about it in a way so different than they're thinking about it, and primarily because, lots of reasons, but primarily because all of us who are non-physically focused, which includes everyone you've ever known who's ever been physically focused, all of us who are non-physically focused are interested in right here, right now, not yesterday and not tomorrow. Here and now, where the juncture between you and you happens, you see. Esther stood at the window and looked out across the water, and so many times she and Jerry have taken those walks down there, and she's looking out there, and she stood and looked out the window, and she thought how sweet it is to be standing here looking out the window with Jerry instead of having separated myself from him because of his reemergence into non-physical, and then using his not being right here, holding my hand, walking down this path as my reason to not enjoy this moment in time. It's such a wonderful thing when you finally reach that understanding that nobody goes anywhere, but that you prevent them from being realized by you. We can't even say, Esther almost found these words, but they were not quite right. We want to give them to you and clarify because it's such an important point. No one ever goes anywhere. And it isn't that you prevent them from being here with you, because you can't prevent them from being here with you. It's that you prevent yourself from realizing that they're here with you. And this is the thing that you do with all of your desires and beliefs. You summon things that you block. That's why it doesn't feel good to you. We want to make that statement more accurately. Of course, you don't always do that, but when you feel negative emotion, that's what you're doing. You're summoning something that you're not letting in. That's what negative emotion always is. You're summoning something that you're not letting in. So let's put this subject into the context of deliberate creation. You're summoning someone that you care deeply about, but because you've decided they're dead, you're not letting them in. Because you've decided that they're no longer here, you're not letting them in. Feel how crazy that is. You summoned them, they're here, they'd be here to some degree, regardless of the power of your summoning, but the more you summon, the more you care, the more you want, the more they're there. But then, oh wait, you're not here. You're not here. It's your disallowing your own realization of their presence. That's why this subject feels so powerful within you. You see, if you're going 100 miles an hour and you hit a tree, it's big time unpleasant. But when you're going 100 miles an hour and there's no tree in the way, you're having a really good ride with Esther in her R8. In other words, 100 miles an hour, 120 miles an hour, 100 and... The faster you go with no resistance. That's why that car is so fun. It is engineered with so little resistance. It's like gravity doesn't matter, inertia doesn't matter, nothing matters. That's how you mean to feel, you say. Is this helpful?
Yes.
You never go anywhere. And when you...
I know that.
You know that, but...
to feel it. It's the...
Speak.
To know it and to feel it is the contradiction I have.
Well, you don't know it if you're not feeling it. In other words, blah, 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 blah.
Okay.
Does your logic tell you that you are eternal beings? Logically. Your logic tells you that. Mm-hmm. Esther logically knows. You see, Esther's been receiving Abraham for all of these years. She wasn't prepared for Jerry to take off like that. Mm-hmm. She was so mad at him. She just thought that was just so unnecessary and really not very thoughtful. But now she realizes that he didn't go anywhere, and that the knowledge that he holds and the beingness that he is, that she still has access to in a keener way than she ever did while he was physically focused. So there's no downside to it, to Esther, anymore. There's no downside. Really, can there be any downside to being eternal?
No.
Can there be any downside to being source, energy, love? Is there any downside? Is there any true downside to being eternal beings? Is there any downside to being still here focused in your physical body while so many that you are interacting with are non-physically focused? Is there any downside to any of this other than the conditions that you place that you can't control that make you feel powerless? You're getting to get a sense of what we're talking about? It's only the way you twist it in your mind that makes you feel unpleasant about it, you see. Esther first noticed it because Jerry and Esther were together all the time. Mm-hmm. All the time. Anyone looking at their relationship from the outside would have to call it dysfunctional, because they were together all the time. They were like the left hand and the right hand. Literally, he was left-handed, she was right-handed. They ate off the same plate a lot of the time. They were together all the time. So when Esther began doing some of the editing and the planning of the schedule and doing some of the things that she and Jerry had done together, or even things that only Jerry had been doing, when Esther began doing those, in the very early stages of that, she felt such absence of him because she so trusted his ability, and he was so actively involved. And so now that he was not there with his hands and with his beingness being actively involved, for a little while Esther really felt the absence of him. It was not fun for her. But after a little while, because of her understanding of her relationship with Abraham, and because of some things that began happening as she would get into a very strong place of asking, and then something would happen that she knew could not be explained in any other way than that Jerry was involved in this moment and was answering her in that way. Once Esther began to remember what she already knew, as you say, and began to accept the always presence of Jerry, she began to notice that it was really satisfying to edit a recording with Jerry in her being editing with her. In other words, talk about streamlined. Talk about communication that is seamless. Talk about understanding things that formerly he would have had to explain to her. She remembered the day that she had the pool replastered, and she knew what to ask about the process, that she shouldn't know what to ask about the process. She knew how many gallons of water the pool held, and she's certain she'd never known that. She knew what kind of plaster she wanted. She knew how much water was in the big tank that the windmill draws up. She knew how to drain the pool. She knew that there must be a valve that took the water out into the pasture so that it wasn't going to flood the driveway of the property. She knew things that she has not discussed with Jerry. She knew things that Jerry knew. Real time, in this moment. So we say that to you, not just about Jerry, you have access to him. Not just about Abraham, you have access to Abraham. Not just about your grandmother or your grandfather or your parent or your child or your friend. You have infinite intelligence flowing to you and through you on any subject that is important to you. Every bit of information that you would want to know about everything offered to you to the degree that you are able to receive it in this moment. None of us standing there shouting. If we say it loud enough, maybe you'll hear it. There's nothing like that. Just this constant, steady presentation of everything that you want to know about everything that you want to know about whenever you want to know about it, just offered to you steadily. And your singular work is to prepare an atmosphere that makes you receptive to the translation of that. You're doing it all the time, you just don't know that you are. But now you've heard this conversation, you're going to start noticing it when you're doing it. You're going to begin to allow yourself to be this integrated being. You were not dead and then alive and then dead again. You were alive and alive and alive. And you never intended to come here in this physical body and be separated from what is non-physical to prove yourself worthy to what is non-physical.